The weather that day left much to be desired. Something on the radio mentioned a storm warning, but Alex did not pay it much attention, a decision he would later deeply regret. The trees outside bent under the force of the strong wind so much that it seemed they would be uprooted from the ground at any moment. The hurricane-force gusts lifted whole pillars of dust, whipped the grass, and drove debris scattered along the road. Inside the car, Alex felt quite comfortable. Warmth and coziness reliably protected him from the chaos raging outside. At first, he watched the unfolding elements with some curiosity, but soon he realized the dangerous consequences this storm could have. Anxiety gripped him. What if a tree fell directly onto the car? Rescue workers would hardly be able to arrive quickly in such bad weather, as people preferred not to leave their homes. The usually busy highway was now completely empty. The last car Alex had seen was about 20 minutes ago. Nevertheless, there were no more than 10 kilometers left to home, and he kept moving forward. Suddenly, a deafening crack sounded, and Alex slammed on the brakes. Ahead, across the road, lay a huge tree whose sprawling canopy blocked half of the roadway. Despite having a considerable distance to the obstacle, the man did not hurry to approach it. He was overwhelmed by fear of nature's fury and decided to pause to calm down. The chosen spot for stopping turned out to be suitable. The car was parked in a small depression where the wind was noticeably weaker than in the open area. Alex took a deep breath, looked around, and noted that even the car doors could be opened here without the risk of being blown off. Inside the car, he felt safe. But as soon as he started the engine again and was about to move, something caught his attention. On the roadside, among the grass, someone was moving. Alex stood up to get a better look, but the twilight light and swaying grass made it difficult to discern what it was. Resolute, he got out of the car. The icy wind immediately pierced his bones, but overcoming the cold, he headed toward the spot where he had seen movement. Peering under the bushes, the man discovered a cat with its head stuck in a narrow tin can. A tall can was fitted over the animal's body up to its shoulders, making it impossible to remove. The cat desperately shook its head, trying to free itself from its prison, but without success. Alex cautiously approached the animal. Hearing footsteps through the wind's noise, the cat froze alertly. When the man took another step, the frightened creature darted to run but, not seeing the road ahead, crashed the can directly into a stone. The impact caused the cat to land on its hind legs and let out a loud yowl. Strangely, the sight amused Alex, and he couldn't help but laugh. However, a moment later, he imagined himself in the unfortunate animal's place, and his smile immediately disappeared. The man pulled his hands out of his pockets, which were already starting to freeze, and reached out to the cat. But the frightened creature jumped up again and, slipping between the stones, retreated a few meters. "Stop!" Alex shouted. "You're going to die of hunger or get hit by a car. Let me help you." He took another step, but the cat moved further away. Meanwhile, the first raindrops began to fall from the low dark clouds. Ice, mixed with water, seeped up his collar, making him wince. Despite all the discomfort, the man firmly decided not to abandon the poor animal and try to help it. After taking a couple of quick steps, Alex caught up with the cat, grabbed it firmly by the scruff, but attempts to remove the can from the animal's head were unsuccessful. His frozen fingers began to tremble. The man gave up all efforts, sat back in the car, and placed the cat on the passenger seat. Alex closed the doors with a creak, turned on the ignition, but immediately heard a threatening hissing and a low, prolonged howl coming from the can on the cat's head. He blew hard on his fingers to warm them up and regain sensitivity, then carefully reached out to the animal. Trying not to scare it, Alex gently twisted the tin can and finally freed the cat. As soon as the can was removed, the cat jerked sharply, hissed piercingly, and tried to swat Alex with its paw. The man quickly pulled his hands away. The creature, continuing to hiss, stared at the can as if it were to blame for all its troubles. Alex tucked the tin can into the car door pocket, and only then did the cat quiet down for a moment. But the silence didn't last long. In the next second, the beast jumped onto the seat, panicked and thrashed around the cabin, then hid in a corner on the dashboard, away from the driver, and began to look around warily. It was obvious that it was the first time the animal had been inside a car. Alex pondered, How did the animal even get here on a deserted highway? The nearest settlement was several kilometers away. Did the cat make its way here with the can on its head from the city? Or was it simply carried away and left here? This thought seemed implausible to Alex. The cat looked terrible. Dirty, tangled fur, dried trails of tears in the corners of its eyes, debris on its tail. The animal's reaction to any human movement was so sharp that it became clear. It had not interacted with people for a long time, if ever. Alex's attempt to reach out to the animal triggered a new wave of hysteria. The cat hissed so loudly it seemed to block his ears. Alex, who had previously encountered loud cat cries, was surprised by such piercing hissing. "Calm down, calm down." He tried to soothe the beast, but only worsened the situation. The cat howled even louder. Its panicked gaze made Alex feel sorry for the animal. He had no intention of forcibly taming it. Moreover, the man wouldn't have even noticed the cat if not for the fallen tree on the road. The idea of taking the cat to the city to find it a home seemed reasonable. But every time Alex tried to calm the animal, his efforts ended in failure. At one point, settling in more comfortably, the man provoked a new reaction from the cat. It leapt over the back of the passenger seat and hid behind the headrest of the rear seat. Sighing heavily, Alex decided that it wasn't worth tormenting the animal if it resisted help so strongly. He opened the back door and said, "Go if you want." However, the cat, despite being offered freedom, retreated back, hiding behind the seat. As soon as the man returned to his seat, the animal's curiosity took over. It cautiously stuck its snout out, began sniffing the air, and surveying the surrounding area. The frosty weather, with trees bending in the wind, didn't scare it, but it clearly didn't want to stay outside. "No, that's not going to work," Alex frowned. "Either you come out or you ride with me. I'm not going to wait here until the bad weather passes." The cat didn't react, only giving the man a dissatisfied look. Slowly counting to 10, Alex realized the cat wasn't going to come out. So he slammed the door shut. The animal flinched, hissed, but this time didn't howl. Making sure the cat had calmed down, the man started the engine. The car moved, carefully circumventing the fallen tree, and soon was back on the highway where the wind was raging. Alex felt a slight unease. There were a few kilometers left to the city, and he hoped that among the high-rises they could find shelter from the storm. On the way, the cat behaved surprisingly quietly. Several times, Alex glanced back to make sure everything was all right. The animal, digging its claws into the seat, trying to stay still despite the shaking, watched the landscape outside the window with wide-open eyes. This sight brought a slight smile to Alex's face. He thought that perhaps their meeting was not accidental. Not knowing how to handle the cat, Alex couldn't decide for a long time. In such gloomy and unpleasant weather, wandering around familiar places trying to find the animal a home seemed unappealing. So he decided to leave the cat in his apartment at least for the time being. However, another problem arose: how to take a wild creature by hand and drag it to the entrance. The cat instantly launched into an attack whenever Alex tried to reach out. Then the man remembered that his sister had once bought a carrier for her cat. Immediately, he dialed her number. "Are you home? Are you okay?" his sister asked, surprised. Alex explained that his business trip, originally scheduled for 2 more days, had ended early because he completed his task sooner. He didn't want to stay in a foreign city and decided to return home. Reassuring his sister that he and his work were fine, he recounted the story of meeting a wild cat. His sister agreed to lend him the carrier, and her home was right on Alex's way. Taking the carrier and a small packet of food, he set off for home. Carefully preparing the carrier, Alex poured some food inside, placed it on the car seat, and began to wait. The cat, cautiously eyeing the man, twitched its nose, catching the scent of the food. Alex prudently hid behind the front seat, trying not to scare the animal. The cat, noticeably relaxed, cautiously extended its nose toward the carrier, then took the first timid step forward. The food, carefully scattered to the very end of the carrier, lured it further. Finally, when its hind legs were inside, Alex suddenly slammed the door shut, instantly locking it. The cat let out a deafening hiss, howled, and began to growl, but the man remained unruffled. Stepping back to a safe distance, he sighed in relief and exclaimed, "Finally caught this wild stubbornness." On the way home, Alex made another stop. He needed to stop by the supermarket. The refrigerator at home was empty, and the food for the new resident needed replenishing. After finishing his shopping, he arrived home late in the evening. He parked the car in the garage, climbed the stairs to his floor, and sighed with relief upon reaching his apartment door. He was lucky not to encounter his curious neighbor, the sweet but excessively talkative old lady. Better she doesn't know I came back early for now, Alex thought. He carefully placed the carrier on the floor in the corridor. The cat, though still hissing, periodically quieted down, listening to the new sounds of the apartment. Between fear and curiosity, the animal still showed signs of interest in its surroundings. Alex quickly had a snack, glanced at the carrier, but didn't dare to release the cat. First, he removed all breakable and heavy objects from the kitchen, prepared a bowl of water and some food. After that, he moved the carrier to a corner of the room, placed the bowls nearby, and stepping back, muttered, "Go eat. I won't bother you." The man carefully closed the door behind him, leaving the cat alone. While the animal settled into the new environment, Alex decided that he first needed to let it get used to and calm down before thinking about a bath. After a while, he peeked into the kitchen. The food was gone, and quiet growling came from the carrier. Smiling, Alex closed the door and went to sleep. The fatigue from the business trip and the worries were evident. Now I only need one thing, sleep, he thought. However, while Alex fell asleep, the cat did not. The kitchen door was ajar, and the animal took advantage of the moment to slip outside. Exploring the new space, the cat cautiously moved around the apartment, sniffing and looking around warily. Alex, deeply asleep, didn't hear either the sounds of the wind outside or the quiet tapping of branches against the window. But the cat, sensing something unusual, tensed up as strange noises came from the front door lock. What adventures awaited Alex next was only a matter of speculation. But that night, he was about to meet a completely new neighbor in the form of a wild, but no longer so frightened cat. At the threshold of the room, it froze, hesitating to enter. Alex, breathing evenly and deeply, slept peacefully in his bed. The cat, noticing this, deftly slipped under a chair next to the bed and stayed silent, as if holding its breath. Although the apartment's owner was unaware, the animal could clearly hear the quiet creak of the front door, the cautious footsteps on the floor, and the whisper, "Are you sure no one's there? Look, there are shoes at the doorstep, and a jacket is hanging. Are you sure the owner won't show up in a couple of days? Let's hurry, gather all the valuables and get out. Just don't turn on the lights. Neighbors might notice." Two indistinct shadows cautiously moved down the corridor. One stopped at the entrance to the living room, allowing their eyes to adjust to the dim light from the street lamps seeping into the room. The other headed straight for Alex's bedroom. When the thief, upon approaching, noticed the sleeping man, he froze for a moment. Taking a step closer to the chair, the stranger hesitated, contemplating his next move. But the cat, already in a state of extreme stress, didn't give him long to think. The animal was utterly terrified. Unfamiliar things around, strange smells. The cat had never been in such a situation before. Seeing the approaching person, it arched its back, extended sharp claws, and, sensing danger, emitted a deafening hiss that turned into a piercing howl. It was so unexpected in the night silence that even the cat shuddered, but didn't stop. On the contrary, it howled even louder. Hearing the deafening roar, Alex leapt out of bed, not understanding what was happening. The thief standing nearby recoiled sharply, became disoriented, and, stumbling back, smashed his forehead against the door frame. The dull thud was accompanied by a painful knock, and the man immediately collapsed to the floor unconscious. The second intruder, hearing the noise, rushed into the corridor. Seeing his accomplice fall to the ground, he dashed toward the exit, flew out the slightly open door, and sprinted down the stairs. The cat still didn't quiet down, and its howls grew louder. The animal couldn't calm down, shaken by the flurry of strangers. Finally realizing the source of the noise, Alex reached for the light switch. Turning on the light, he froze in shock. On the floor lay an unconscious stranger, motionless. A crimson stain was spreading under his head. The cat sat nearby, growling and hissing. The man was momentarily stunned, but upon hearing the slam of the front door, he grabbed a heavy desk lamp from the table and rushed into the corridor. However, the apartment was empty. The entrance door slammed shut below. Approaching the window, Alex noticed the second thief jumping into a car and driving away. Putting the lamp aside, he hurried to take out his phone to call the police and an ambulance. Then he cautiously approached the man lying on the floor. Checking his pulse, Alex felt a faint heartbeat with relief. Turning the stranger over, he saw his face drenched in blood. Not knowing how to help, Alex wrapped the intruder's hands with tape to protect himself in case he woke up. The cat calmed down as soon as its owner left the room. The animal hid, but this didn't bother Alex. He was more concerned about questions. Who were these people and why did they break into his apartment? The sirens blaring outside interrupted his thoughts. The man ran out to meet the police and paramedics, trying to explain the situation. "How did you end up with a man in your apartment with a head injury and tied hands?" the officer asked calmly. Alex tried to tell them about the cat, which scared the thief with its behavior, but his story met the officer's skepticism. "So you're saying the cat drove him to such a state?" the officer asked skeptically. The paramedics attended to the injured man, and the police began inspecting the apartment. However, Alex was increasingly irritated by their disbelief in his words. He barely contained his emotions, realizing how unusual the situation looked. While some officers were documenting blood traces on the doorframe, others were interviewing a neighbor who had witnessed the nighttime commotion. One of the uninvited guests dared to enter Alex's bedroom and, taking a fatal step, approached the bed. The cat, burrowed in the farthest corner of the room, noticed the stranger's pair of shoes, hissed so loudly that the sound resembled a siren's wail, and then erupted into a wild, piercing scream that could be mistaken for a true madman's cry. The unexpected noise set the entire apartment in motion. Residents jumped as if on springs, and one of the officers, who was interrogating Alex at that moment, immediately grabbed his holstered weapon, ready for any surprises. The cat's loud howl snapped the thief out of his deep stupor. The criminal, abruptly waking up, opened his eyes and, meeting the police's gaze, began to flail, howling right into the sofa cushions. Watching this spectacle, Alex remained almost indifferent, only giving a sly smile and, raising his eyebrows, calmly said, "Well, you still don't believe me?" His voice carried a hint of amusement. The police, figuring out the source of the noise, immediately looked under the bed. Flashlights illuminated the culprit of the commotion. The angry cat, which, deciding it was being attacked, instantly lunged at the offenders. One of the officers, showing immediate reflexes, managed to avoid the sharp claws. Otherwise, the matter could have ended with serious injuries. The complicated operation of shoving the cat into the carrier turned into a real show. Everyone present participated in this mission like a coordinated rescue team. Alex, exhausted after such a performance, once again asked hopefully, "Is it really not rabid?" The officers calmed him down, assuring that they would take the animal to a veterinarian for tests and report the results. After the cat finished its unplanned demonstration, there was no doubt. It became entirely clear how the thief had injured his head. This incident clarified many details. No one asked about the tape on Alex's hands anymore. The investigations related to the incident continued almost all night. When the thief realized that escape was impossible, he immediately cooperated. He named his accomplice, who had managed to escape, and provided detailed descriptions. Another unit was promptly dispatched to apprehend the accomplice. To Alex's surprise, it soon turned out that the main instigator was that very neighbor whose visits he feared the most. The elderly woman he had trusted proved to be cunning and calculating. Using her sociability and assertiveness, she easily extracted the necessary information from the residents. Thus, Alex, deciding to distance himself from her endless visits, informed her that he was going on a business trip. Without wasting time, the neighbor passed this information to her accomplices. After this incident, the entire building buzzed with discussions about the pensioner's criminal inclinations, suspecting her of collaborating with thieves. Alex himself, ignoring the neighbor's chatter, was busy solving pressing problems. First, he awaited the arrival of a locksmith to install a new lock, and then he spent the entire day running around the city looking for a veterinarian willing to examine the cat. The creature proved to be extremely unfriendly. As soon as it hissed and swiped its paw, the doctors immediately refused to approach. Only one veterinarian, armed with a special glove with a thick plastic pad, managed to take a blood sample from the animal for analysis. Fortunately, no rabies was detected in the cat. Returning home, Alex placed the carrier on the floor, opened the door, and offered the cat a bowl of food. Looking at the creature with a gentle smile, he said, "You know, I've changed my mind. I won't look for a new home for you. You'll stay with me. I'll name you Tiger. We'll become friends, and you'll become a real house cat." The cat looked at him distrustfully but, surprisingly, did not hiss. This was a great start to a new, strong friendship.